This is me. This is my beloved wife, Sylvia. This is Sylvia's idea of sailing. This is my dream of sailing and my hope of circumnavigating the globe as a retirement project in 2029. This is Sylvia's reaction to that idea.
What? You got a quest?
I am on a 6-year quest to convince Sylvia that a circumnavigation is a wonderful adventure, but the clock is ticking, so join me as I search for the perfect yacht that Sylvia will love, and get all your ladies to subscribe and cheer Sylvia on in the comments. Welcome back to Naval Gazing at Camp David. This week's guest yacht is nearing the entry level of the world's largest catamaran manufacturer, the Lagoon 42. Today, we're going to, 1, review its specifications, pricing, and layout against 3 similar new vessels. 2, do a full tour asking what would Sylvia say. 3, naval gaze and innovation and or adjustment that might make life aboard a little bit easier. 4, have a look at the used market for 3 to 5-year-old comparables. And 5, give it a Dave score and compare the result with all the other previous reviewed yachts. All this fun will be sandwiched between a wine pairing from the same region as the guest yacht and a look at a favorite sample of art from the same region. Yachts, waves, ideas, and wine and art. What a civilized way to spend 30 minutes. So let's get going. Starting high above Vancouver, Canada, we fly east across North America and across the Atlantic, and northeast up into Scandinavia, and the home of last time's yacht at the Quorning Boat yards. From here, we head southwest to France's western shores and the home of the 42 at the Lagoon yards. Finally, we fly a bit further north up the coast to the wineries of Chateau Moulin De Taffard, and our wine pairing this week, Chateau Moulin De Taffard Medoc Cru Bourgeois, a fine dry wine from Bordeaux created from a blend of red grapes grown on limestone soils of the famous Bordeaux region of Medoc. In 1914, Teobalt Peyrus bought the property in Katsilone, bordering the Gironde estuary, about 7 kilometers from Bordeaux. Today, the farm covers 41 hectares, and the management of the company is concentrated in the hands of grandson and great-grandson. Maceration involves separation, fermentation of different varieties of grapes at a temperature from 26 to 28 degrees Celsius, Oh, you can taste the oak. Wonderful. Let's go have a look at that boat. Cheers. Having a look at this boat, you know, at 42 feet, they've done a good job on reducing the length without really distorting the dimension. I mean, from top down, she looks like a bit of a guppy, but side on, they've done a very, very good job given what they're trying to do here. You've got a nice forward section there. There's no faux forward cockpit, but you do have good area there. You can throw some bean bags. Nice aft cockpit, good mid-helm, so you stay in touch with the cockpit, the helm, as well as a nice sun pad on top. I mean, for 42 feet, it's really a very, very nice platform. Look at the helm there, how comfortable that would be and how connected you would feel with the rest of the boat. Great forward area for entertaining, great cockpit area. Overall, a very attractive boat. As we start to look at the numbers, I'd like to introduce a new resource that has become very, very helpful to me. It's called Catamaran Show. And the amount of work that has gone into this website boggles my mind. Andreas Norlin from Catamaran Show reached out to me and asked if I wouldn't mind mentioning his site and working with him on the gathering of the data, because it is a time-consuming process, gathering and vetting the data. There's lots of different stories out there, lots of confusion. Case in point, everybody still thinks that Leopard has end-grain balsa. They don't. They have foam all the way through that boat, but it takes a lot to find some of this information out. Now, Andre and his wife have done an absolutely brilliant job on this website. You can see here, you can see every single catamaran on the market, and then you click on one, you get into the specific specifications. You can move into a qualifier screen here that allows you to put your specific requirements and narrow down the search. Then you can compare 3 models, and it's as easy as a click down, selecting the unit that you want, and Bob's your uncle, there it is. Everything from layouts to polars to you name it. Whatever Andre has managed to find, he's put onto this site. So I'd encourage you to have a look at Catamaran Show. I'm using it, find it incredibly helpful. And if we work together with Andre and forward him any issues or concerns, I'm sure we can get a clean data set. And that is a wonderful thing when you're buying a catamaran. Okay, diving into the numbers. So, new comparables, we're looking at the ORC 42, the FP Estrella 42, the Lagoon 42, and the XS 11. And looking at the profiles here, you can see that obviously the Lagoon cuts quite a deep swath here. She's got a high freeboard, high cabin top, high boom. I mean, this isn't a racing catamaran. You look at the delta then between even the XS. Now that's a shorter boat, but they've really lowered the boom. And on the ORC, they've taken that right down. Even FP, given that they have mid-helm, has a lower boom here. As we move then onto the cabin top, you can see what I'm talking about when I say guppy. There's our Lagoon, and she looks a little pregnant. But you can see overall, you don't have, this doesn't show the sun pad on here, but there is one. FP obviously has a sun pad. The XS11 does not, nor of course the ORC. That's a racing machine. Let's dive into the saloon now. Looking at the saloon area in the Lagoon 42, it's a very comfortable space. There is nothing to argue about on this boat. FP has done a heck of a job as well on their saloon. The ORC is very functional. It feels a little smaller, but there's a charm to the ORC which can't be revealed in these comparisons, and it really doesn't belong in this set, but I thought I'd throw her in there to give you a sense of what what real specifications should look like. XS11, you probably have about the same square footage in there. It's much more stripped down, that's the wrong word. It's much more simple in its approach. They're trying to squeeze out the pounds and get rid of them there, and they've done not a bad job. As we head down into the cabins now, you can see this is where the Lagoon 42 shines. Look at the width of those cabins. You've got a beautiful full hull owner suite. Lots of room around the bed so that, as Sylvia says, I can make it. I can get around and up to the full head of the bed there. You can do the same in the FP. The XS is a different sort of setup. You have sort of a one side there, as it's an athwartship berth. So not as comfortable that way. Even in the Lagoon, you've even got that beautiful little settee. I know nobody uses it. I would, to put my shoes on and stuff, but it adds a sense of elegance to the entire cabin, and it does a great job. So let's look at those infamous numbers now. Looking around across the top line, you can see the ORC base is €520. The Fountain Peugeot 42 is 466. The Lagoon 42 is 426. and the excess is 326. As we start to look at the overall length, of course, the ORC is 46.1, and it'd be the longest of the bunch. The FP42 is about 41 feet. The Lagoon is 42 exactly, and the excess is 37. Looking at draft, the lowest draft on this is, of course, the excess at 1.15, and then tied for second is the Fountain Pajot and the Lagoon at 1.25. The displacement, now this is the amusing part, so ORC, 5.8 ton. Then you head to the Fountain Pajot, 11.5 ton. Then our big girl, the Lagoon 42 at 12.1 ton. And then the excess, they've done really quite an admirable job at shaving about 2 ton off of the comparable Lagoon 40 here. So you're looking at 9 ton. The total upwind sail area here, your top one is the FP at 106, followed by the ORC at 100, then the Lagoon at 90, and the excess at 77. Looking at tankage, top dog in the group is going to be the FP at 470 and 700. Looking at hull construction, of course, the top dog is going to be the ORC with infused vinyl ester on foam. The Lagoon still retains polyester, foam below the waterline, and edge grain balsa above the waterline. Now, I did have an opportunity to speak to one of the technical guys at Lagoon /Excess about edge grain balsa, and I know I'll probably stir up a hornet's nest on this, but his comment was it's not just cheap. It gives them greater shear strength, and the concern about water intrusion is not founded anymore, given that the balsa is in small blocks, and with the infusion process, those blocks are completely individually encased in resin. So if you get a small puncture, 1 or 2 blocks will be impacted, not the entire sheet. There's no longer sheets of balsa in there. And every block is separated from the next block. Now, it made a good point too. If you get that kind of penetration with foam and it's not dealt with, sooner or later the foam disintegrates too. So, you know, I'd love to have a formal debate on edge grain balsa. They claim much better shear strength, and that's the reason they're using it. Now, as we head down into the actual performance, so sail area over displacement, of course, you have the ORC screaming ahead at 31.6, followed surprisingly by the FP at 21.11. Then you've got the excess at 18 and the Lagoon taking up the tail end at 17. So that is power. Looking at heaviness, this is where lowest number wins. You've got the ORC at 72, which classifies it as an ultralight. You are then followed by the FP at 160, which classifies it at light. Here's a surprise. The excess comes in at 185, which labels it moderate, and the Lagoon is third, not last in this case, at 172. You can see the Bruce numbers there. Okay, hopping on board, what would Sylvia say? You know, other than the fact that it's 42 feet, which is just not quite big enough, Sylvia would really like this. I really like this boat, you know, for what it is. It's not a racer. You're going to motor an awful lot. It's more like a motor sailor, if you will. But as far as a platform for enjoyment and entertainment, wow, it's hard to beat. Lagoon really does a nice job on what they do here for what they're building, and it shows. I love that mid-helm. Over the last months, as you've gotten to know me, I've moved away from the idea of a flybridge. The idea of this mid-helm, especially in rough seas, when Sylvia might be feeling insecure, the fact that she can see me, I can talk to her, she can talk to me, it could make the difference between a successful circumnav and a failure. As we look around, the side decks are nice and wide. I wish more catamaran manufacturers would use solid rails instead of the death lines that just add a bit of a flip to your dip over the edge. Forward is nice and clear. Room for bean bags. The nets are there. You can get some nice coverings for those to make them a little more comfortable. I'm not big on the exposed chain to the windlass. You know, sooner or later that's going to bring rust residue and mud and crap and stain that gel coat. Coming back down the starboard side, we're into the cockpit. Again, nice teak table, nice edging. It's not just a slab, it has some thickness and girth to it. The upholstery is extremely nicely done. And I know that sounds a little bit silly, but it's tight. It doesn't look floppy, sloppy. It looks high quality when you look at it. Nice little settee on the aft end here, and there's your all-important cockpit fridge. And you can see now the ceiling of the cockpit cover is faired but not really finished. As we enter in, the darker wood and the curves and the level of finish is really strong in the boat. There's nothing really to complain about. You have good-looking upholstery. It looks tight. You've got alternating colors on the wood edge to the wood cover on the table. That nicely shaped little stool there. It's not just a stool. They've actually shaped the thing to give it a little zip. Trust the French. They do a great job at that. Okay, diving into a little navel gazing here. I'm going to talk a little bit about why in the world, in an environment where you live on the water, you know it's going to rain, you know you're going to encounter heavy seas, you know that you are going to have saturated foulies that have to come into a very small living space that is itself already laden with humidity. Why don't we consider where to put that wet clothing? I think we consider where to put wet clothing more in Vancouver, in our houses, than they do in ships like, or boats like this. And we don't have the level of moisture and wet that you do on this boat. I was watching recently an episode of the Barefoot Doctors where they were touring the Explocat. Now they have a fantastic solution to this, and here it is. I borrowed this from the doctor's video. This is a Fowley's closet, and it has a heater at the bottom. Not only that, here's the shoe cupboard, as if you had a ski lodge where you put your ski boots and they dry out. Makes complete sense because your boots on the boat are definitely going to get wet. So they've got a cupboard that again has a heater and goes in and dries out your boots. Why isn't this standard? Now they look to exhaust the added humidity out a ceiling vent, and we'll probably get into that either this episode or another episode. I just don't believe in just randomly adding additional humidity to an already small, tight space that's humidity filled and you have to live in. But as we go then to the new Portofino that the Barefoot Doctors are purchasing, the 52, you can see he's taken another step. He's got an entire wet room on the port aft ama or pontoon. The sugar scoop, you walk straight off the sugar scoop into the diving room where you're able to take off either your diving gear or your foulies and put them away and let them dry out. Now that is just brilliant, and I don't understand why it isn't incorporated into every single sailboat and catamaran. Okay, back on board. We're heading down the stairs. And again, the level of finish is very nice. I like this sort of chocolate wood. It's very warm. Look at the amount of room you have around the side. I like that because I'm the guy that has to make that bed. And I like to get up there, and I like a made bed. We'll put a link to the Admiral in his speech on that one. The head is beautiful, nice separate dry head with a separate shower. Every bit of finish, the edges are a little darker than the main wood, which is a nice touch. You have nice curtains there. You know, for a bow cabin, that one's not bad at all. And, oh, by the way, you have your own head as well. Now, it's a wet head, but, you know, that's okay. This is a 42-foot boat. Heading back up into the saloon, again, the compression post is nicely integrated, really doesn't get in the way. Look at every single corner. It's all nicely rounded. There's your nav station, which really doesn't take up space an awful lot, but you still have a little desk area you can swing around on the settee there and use. Let's head down into this the starboard hull now, and looking forward again, you've got reasonable space along the side. I could work my way up, and you have access then into the forepeak, which is really nice. Here's your head on this side. Again, you're looking at a wet head, but this is the forward cabin. And moving back again, you have a mirror image of the port side. So again, great access, great ventilation, lots of opening windows for cross, breeze, and overhead venting. There's nothing to complain about on this vessel in any way, shape, or form, save for the fact that you're going to be listening to an engine a fair amount of time. As we move back up into the saloon, let's have another thought on navel gazing. So, fair warning, this may end up as more of a rant than a navel gaze. But as an outsider to the sailing yacht world, there are a few things that utterly mystify me, foremost of which is cabin and clothing moisture management. We're talking about a vessel that sits in the water for its entire life. We know that moisture-laden air will be a fact of life. We know that multiple people will be living in confined spaces. We know that clothing and shoes will be entering these confined spaces completely saturated with water. Yet, when I tour expensive yachts up for sale, I am inevitably faced with butt ugly, portable dehumidifier strewn around a $1 million yacht, set on counters with a hose shoved into a sink and an extension cord snaking around the cabin. Accompanying this, at the Vancouver Boat Show, and in any cooler climate, I'm touring $1 million yachts with portable heaters on extension cords strewn around the cabin. Furthermore, hardly a yacht I have seen has a dedicated Fowley's cabinet, and fewer still have a heater and humidity management system built in that works on electricity and onshore, offshore, on your battery banks, and can manage the environment you're living in just like your home. What really blows my mind are non-ventilated dryers that are installed when every person I talk to knows that they don't work well and simply add to the humidity issue. The end result is a beautiful and expensive boat investment that becomes uncomfortable and stinks within a single season. I don't even want to think about the mold health implications that are signaled by that musty boat smell. We would never dream of building a house without a well-engineered HVAC system. Why are boats that need this even more built without one? Someone enlighten me. Put it in the comments. I don't get it.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
We have the technology to manage this situation efficiently, conveniently, and in a manner that looks aesthetically pleasing. So here is my navel gazing for today. Every boat should have an integrated dehumidification system. They're inexpensive compared to the damage that they prevent. We now have the wireless monitoring and control, battery, solar, dock power switching technology that makes these systems simple and safe, automatic and usable in any circumstance. Every boat should have an integrated electric heating and cooling system. As with the dehumidifier, we have the power sources and control systems to keep boat interiors dry and at a temperature that avoids smells, mold, mildew, and long-term damage to finishes and woodwork in the vessel. Unvented dryers should simply not exist on a boat. If you are fancy enough to have a marine dryer on board, someone should be designing a marine venting system to take that moisture-laden air out of the cabin as opposed to trying to drain desiccant systems. Tomas at Exquisite Yachts has it, and there's several others that have it as well. So it's possible. Just put your engineers to work. Last but not least, every boat needs a Fowley's cabinet. Not only that, but that cabinet needs a heater and a venting system to take the moist air outside the cabin area, not into it. This one just seems so simple to me. It will keep the boat safe and less cluttered with less chance of fire from creative clothing drying solutions. It will keep the crew more comfortable, alert, and healthy. It will keep very expensive foul weather gear in top condition longer. It will keep the cabin dry, comfortable, and without the smell of sweat, rubber, and nylon. The best example that I have seen this is on the Garcia Explocat 52, again, on that recent episode done by the Barefoot Doctors. This solution had separate clothing and footgear storage, both with built-in heaters. However, even there, the cabinets did not have integrated external ventilation. Why? So here, obviously, all we want is a fully integrated HVAC system on a space that absolutely requires it, with a lovely wall thermostat that controls the whole thing and brings it all together.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Okay, after the rant, we're back on board, heading out to the cockpit. Quick look around, nice stairs up to the helm station, beautiful seating areas, and very, very comfortable environment. You can zip on your clears there, you can see, but there is no roll-up storage as there are on the bigger vessels. And overall, you know, looking back on this, just a really nice boat for what it's meant to do. Okay, let's look at the pre-owned comparables. Bearing in mind, again, I take the base price, I add 50%, and I consider that sail away for our new boat. So in this case, that puts the Lagoon 42 sail away at about $639,000 US. First up is the Seawind 1260. This is 2020, 2-year-old boat. It'll have some extra toys. They're asking $749 for a 41-foot boat versus $639 for a sail-away Lagoon. Again, if I am a determined sailor, I'm going to go with the Seawind. In my case, I'd balance everything up and I would go with the Lagoon on this one, but that's me. Next up, we're looking at the Fountain Peugeot 42, a 2019, so 3-year-old boat. It'll have some toys on it. They're asking $630,349 versus the brand new Lagoon at $639. Sorry, I would do the brand new Lagoon. Next up, we're looking at a Bali 4.3. It's a 43-foot boat. It's a 2019. They're asking $534 versus the $639. This would be enough to give me pause simply because of the massive space in the Bali layout, and probably performance on either of them is about the same. So it would really depend on the specific boat and how well it was cared for and how it felt when I walked in. Finally, we're looking at a 2019 Lagoon 42, apples to apples, so this is a 3-year-old. They're asking $590 versus $639. I'd go for the brand new one in a heartbeat. I wouldn't mind waiting a bit. Okay, we're moving on into monohull heresy, where I compare monohulls to this boat. So I add 20% to the length to get a comparable monohull for space, and here we have the 2020 ML50, an amazing blue water boat that just about anybody would be comfortable on. They're asking 1.1 versus 639. You know, the ML is like head and shoulders above the Lagoon as far as quality and purpose. if I had the bucks, I'd do the ML. If not, obviously the Lagoon is a great choice. Moving then on into more comparable boat, and that would be a 2021 Bavaria C50. They're asking $649 versus $639. If Sylvia tolerated the heel, I would be tempted to go with the Bavaria, but this would be a very tough choice because the Lagoon and the Bavaria, very comparable in their space. It would be a very personal choice, I think. The next one up is the Beneteau Oceanus 51.1, 52-foot boat. They're asking $650. It is a 2-year-old boat versus $639 for the brand new Sail Away Lagoon 42. I think I'd do the Lagoon in this case. Okay, the moment we've all been waiting for, the Dave score. So where did she end up? Well, you know, all told, and bear in mind, this is for my purposes and Sylvia's purpose. This is my purpose for getting Sylvia to agree to my purpose. The Lagoon 42 is just a little too small for me. But as far as the interior and exterior elegance, I'd give the interior a 7. It's quite nice. The exterior about a 6. There's just limited space. There's no faux front cockpit. Then for comfort on the interior and exterior, I'd give them both a 7 on this. Then as we look at quality and performance, we're looking at 6 for quality and 7 for performance. I'm sure that's raising a few hackles. And then on into Lazy Sailor, Condo, and Geek. Lazy Sailor, 7. Everything comes back to that one Helm. You really don't have to go running around that boat. Condo is 6. It's just a little too small for full-on condo, but it's awful good. And Geek is 6. There's nothing really wild. There's no lowering platforms or forward cockpit or fly lounge or anything on this. Value for the money, I'd give it a 7. I mean, overall, it's not a bad vessel. You know, for the buck, it's a brand new one for that price. Not bad. Okay, to wrap things up, let's move into the art of the region. This week, we're looking at wrapping things up, let's look at art of the region. This week, we're looking at The Port of Bordeaux by Edouard Manet, 1871. His style is realism. The media is oil on canvas, and it's currently located at the E.G. Berhel Foundation in Zurich, Switzerland. Edouard Manet was a modernist painter whose works were decisive for the transition from realism to impressionism. Manet was born into an upper-class family with a high political influence. His father was chief of staff of the Ministry of Justice and gave his son an appropriate education. But Manet had little love for school and was a rather underachieving student. His uncle awakened his interest in art and often visited the Louvre with him. He advised him to attend a special art course where he became friends with Antoine Peyrus. Manet's parents were against his decision to become an artist, there's a surprise, and encouraged him to study law. But that again did not correspond to Manet's ideas. On his father's advice, he went on a training ship to Rio de Janeiro as an apprentice. But since he failed the entrance examination for the Naval College twice, his parents finally gave in and allowed him to study art. At the age of 18, Manet became an apprentice of the classical painter Thomas Couture and stayed there for 6 years. During this period, he also undertook several study trips to Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands. On these trips, he met the artists Franz Halles, Diego Velázquez, and Francisco José de Goya, who had decisive influence on him. After completing his training, Manet opened his own studio where he devoted himself to motifs in the style of realism by Gustave Courbet. His work, Olympia, which was exhibited in the Paris Salon, caused a particular stir. This work triggered a scandal and caused a fierce outrage among visitors and critics. Young alternative artists such as Courbet, Monet, Cézanne, Gauguin took the work under their wing and paid special tribute to it. Monet therefore exhibited some of his paintings, which had been rejected by the Paris Salon, in the alternative Salon de Refuse. However, in contrast to the core group of Impressionist artists, Monet was convinced that they should not completely break away from traditional saloon. For this reason, he continued to regularly exhibit his works in the Paris Saloon. Monet was closely associated with the Impressionists, influenced by many artists, and took up many elements in exchange with them himself. But he never wanted to feel he belonged to this group. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the wine. I hope you enjoyed the boat, a little bit of navel gazing, and you'll forgive the rant. And I truly hope you enjoyed this lovely piece of art. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. Cheers.